Savenaca and good evening Fiji. Welcome to the State of the Fijian, a show where we look at the state and the Fijian, like you and I, and the politics that affects us all. The 2018 elections introduced to us many figures and parties that joined into the arena of politics. One such figure was Mr. Savenaca Narube, the leader of Unity Fiji. Joining us in studio, Mr. Narube, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill.
So why politics? Why you were the governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji, and then you decide to form your own party, so why politics?
Well, let me take a step back and say who I am. I mean, many of the youths, I hope, know who I am. I'm, as Abdul has introduced me, Savenaca Narube. My last posting was as a governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji. But before that, I was the permanent secretary for finance. I worked at the IMF and the World Bank in Washington, D.C., the US. And I had been at boards of directors, either as chairman or as a director of many, many boards. So why did I join politics? As I said, I worked for government for a long time. I worked with politicians. I worked with prime ministers. But in my view, I wasn't a politician. I was never going to be a politician. But when I left in 2009, I became a consultant across the Pacific. And as I look back to Fiji, I could see signs, worrying signs of where we were heading. So I asked myself, what should I do? If I can contribute to restoring stability, restoring growth, avoiding those pitfalls in government, what should I do? And I tell you, that's not a very easy question to answer. As a person, I have given 35 to 40 years of my life already to the country.
Right.
Why would I come in at the political level? And I get to answer a lot of those questions. But my concern remains that I think that I could contribute to restoring that stability, that growth that we would need in the country. That was my motivation to come.
So with that thought, you formed a new party for the 2018 elections. Why not any of the existing political parties? What was the vision behind this new party, or what was not being provided for in the other parties that made you form Unity Fiji?
We looked around. We shopped around. We looked at all the parties that were in existence then. We noted a few things that we want to correct. The first is that we want to put people first. We saw that a lot of politicians, when they get into leadership, get into government, they forget about the people. It happens all the time. It is happening now. Yeah. So we want to put people first, and people first is our motto. Right. Unity Fiji, people first.
So yes. The other thing is, just maybe a month or so ago, it was announced that there is a proposed merger between the Labour Party, Unity, and the third party, I forgot the name. But do you think that there are parties which align now to the values that Unity Fiji espouses, and there is a potential for a merger between opposition parties?
Yeah. Well, they say politics is a science of the possible, and that's exactly what we have done. You know, under the rules of this game that we are playing in the polls, in my view, after the 2018 elections, I knew that we must unite to maximize the possibility of change in government. So that's what we have tried to do. It is not a memorandum of coalition, it's a memorandum of the three parties working together to try to form a coalition of all political parties. That's what we have done.
Is this a merger, or is this a memorandum of working together?
Working together. A lot of people get it wrong. They say it's a merger, it's a coalition. Not yet. What we are just doing is signing an agreement to say that we will work together. Mind you, this discussion of possible coalition has been raging on since 2014. So a number of years of discussion, but nothing has happened. So that's why we have signed a memorandum of agreement.
Yeah. So I would say that maybe you're a newcomer to the scene of politics as a candidate in elections, and How was the 2018 experience for you?
We started late because we registered in about 2017 late. So we had only about 10 months to prepare. And as a new party with a network that we had to establish, that was just not sufficient time.
Right.
But I had a taste of how these elections are being executed under the new law. So that is very, very good education for us to learn going forward to the next election.
Right. And this is a show about young people by young people. I want to ask, what are the policies that the party has around young people into politics through Unity Fiji?
Well, I think as we all understand, young people is all about education. Education will be the key to young people realizing their full potential in their livelihoods. So education must be there. And we will put education right at the top of our priority.
How is the party going to prioritize young people into politics?
Yeah, so I'll come to the second question, Abdul, second answer to that question, which is basically jobs. The jobs that we will have after you leave school, you expect to have a job after you have qualified. So jobs is a very, very important aspect of it. The youth empowerment is basically through decisions that they can bring to the decision-making table.
Yeah.
We need to provide them with that channel for them to make decisions, bring them to the table. We will listen to the youth before decisions are made.
Okay. We'll pause in our conversation there and we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. You're watching The State of the Fijian, and we are talking to Mr. Savenaca Narube, the leader of Unity Fiji Party. We just finished talking about how young people could be mainstreamed into politics. Mr. Narube, I wanted to ask, the majority of our voters, about around 70%, are under the age of 40, and we have a huge youth bulge in Fiji. The current outlook of Unity is majority older men. Will you be able to attract younger voters for the next elections?
Let me say I don't agree with you when you say we are appealing to older men. I think if you look at our policies, they are quite reformist, new, something that they may not have seen before. So I think we are also appealing to a wide age group, including younger men.
That did not reflect in the 2018 elections.
As I said, the 2018 elections were quite short for us. We used that as a learning curve for us. This time around, we have gone out to the people because we have time. And our message has resonated a lot with younger people. So I think we have younger people following as well.
So what sort of policies does Unity Fiji Party have for the young people in Fiji?
As I said, education is definitely the one.
So what about education?
Yeah, we will of course look at aspects of the scholarship itself that we had included in our 2018 manifesto. That is not new.
Yeah.
We have that. We have heard other parties that have made that the same policies as theirs now, but we started that in 2018 election.
Right.
We have to find jobs for them. And this is where we think our competitive advantage over all the other parties, because of our skills and experience in actually putting in place policies to enable the private sector, the small businesses to create jobs for the school leavers.
Yeah. Do you think as party leader you are relatable to young people in Fiji? The policies, the way you present yourself, would you think you are relatable?
Absolutely. In my mind, they may have a different view, but as I said, our newness, our trustworthiness, our credibility is what matters to younger people when they're seeking someone to vote for in the 2018 election. And I believe we have that image.
And what do you think you have that one positive point in your party compared to the other parties that would attract young people?
We are flagging this issue of leadership. We face a crisis of leadership in this country, and we have been facing that for a while. Yeah. So we bring to the table a leadership that cares for the people, a leadership that has actually has demonstrated that we could deliver, that we have done that, we have been there.
Yeah.
We are not thinking of something that we haven't done.
Yeah.
So you can look at our track record and think of yourself that you could trust a leader of Unity Fiji and the Unity Fiji team to bring to you what you want.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly go into our second part in this segment, which is on policy. I'm going to play for you a snippet of our interview with Mr. Podro Indalo, leader of Hope Party, and I would like to know your comments on this.
If you see, like we said again at the last elections, if you listen to all of us, there were really three big points of view at the last election. Fiji First had its point of view. The other non-government parties, they all agreed on everything. They signed statements together, they sat together, gave press conferences together, so they were the second view. Ours was the third view.
So Ms. Roindalo says that there were literally only three views in the 2018 elections. The Fiji First, her party, and the third one was the opposition parties together signing statements and giving press conferences together. Do you agree with that?
I think we need to split that a bit more clearly than what she has pointed out. I think definitely there's a government view. But the other view of all the opposition members, excluding her party, I think we need to examine that a little bit more. Because in my experience in 2018 elections, there were very little working together that she mentioned.
Right.
There were very little joint statements that happened. I know, I was there. The discussion of national unity between opposition parties was discussed, but nothing was the consequences of it.
Yeah.
So, and her party, I don't know, Unity Fiji, I thought we were more vocal than her party. But that's her opinion. Right. So I just want to put that record straight.
Yeah. The other thing I think has been mentioned is that the public perception of Unity is that it is an Itoke party. The values of Unity in its constitution and previous manifestos does speak of multiculturalism. So what exactly is Unity? Do you intend to change the public's perception and attract voters along the spectrum?
Yes, absolutely.
And how would you do that?
And that's exactly why we formed Unity Fiji, because we thought that political parties that existed during that in 2018 were at the extremes of the spectrum. Right. We want someone to be mainstream in the middle, and we thought we could fill that void. And our constitution itself is a multiracial party. When we say multiracial, we need to understand what it is. Yeah. We need to address the needs of everyone, whether they're Itoke, or whether they're Indo-Fijians, or whether they are any other minority race. That is what we need to address. So it comes down to your policy rather than your lineup of candidates. But we have the policies that addresses all those needs of the multi-ethnic communities that we face here in Fiji. We have a general secretary that is Indo-Fijian. We have another Indo-Fijian in our board. Right. We have Indo-Fijian in our lineup. And including women and young people.
Right. So, I'm going to move on to the next part, which is the economics. You are an economist. You've been the governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji. What are your comments on the debt to GDP ratio in Fiji? Now, just a disclaimer, I do not know what that means. Maybe before you respond, you could give the viewers an understanding of what it means when politicians talk about debt to GDP ratio.
When we talk about the economy, debt is only a component, a very important component of it. So I'll answer your question on that. But we talk about the overall economy. We're talking about everybody's livelihoods.
Right.
The livelihoods of everyone. And if we see the livelihoods of everyone in Fiji, where is it headed? It's headed south, isn't it? Our poverty report that just came out, terrible, unacceptable to where we are. So your economic management ultimately must be measured by how many poor people that are there. In where you manage, whether in the country or wherever. So that's where our measuring stick is. Right. And then we come to GDP. GDP measures how good we produce, how the goods we produce every year. Right. That produces us our income. That's produced domestically. Our debt is, of course, our debt that we borrow from all the other
quickly,
countries.
Before we go on the break, what is Fiji's debt to GDP ratio like economically? Are we in a good place? Are we not in a good place before we go to the break?
Definitely, we're in a precarious situation. The debt to GDP, which is currently close to 100% of our GDP, which means we are living on that.
Yeah, we're going to continue this conversation on where we are in terms of the economics of Fiji right after this break. Welcome back. We are in studios with Mr. Savenaca Narube, the leader of Unity Fiji Party, and this time around we are talking about economics, and you had said we are not in a very good place in terms of economics. How did we come here?
Yeah, when we were last talking, we were talking about the large debt that we have, which I said it was close to 100% of our GDP. Okay, why did we get to that level of debt? The COVID contributed to it, for sure. But our situation was dire before even COVID came in. Why? Because government thought that money was growing on trees. They are spending lavishly, lavishly. And some of those spending, if not, most of them were really political spending. They were really wasteful spending. So that was the result of it.
Didn't the government say that there was a Beni Marama boom in the 2019 to 2020 budget, I think?
We did some very, very, what I'm calling cardinal sins of economy. We were basing our growth, which is the mining Barama boom, on that spending. We were spending to get growth. And that in an economy like ours is never going to work. It will collapse one day, which has started to collapse with our debt reaching into very, very serious figures. Yes, we had to have a proper framework, or proper grounding of our economic growth. We didn't do that.
Yeah, and one of the very often talked about points is that we have put all our eggs in one basket, with looking at only tourism, which is contributing to somewhere around 40% of our GDP. And with COVID, we have seen that we cannot focus on one sector. What would a unity government focus on as part of recovery of COVID?
Look, we have to exploit what we have here domestically. We know the vulnerability of this country to external resources like tourism. So what do we have? Land, the sea, the forest. What haven't we done is to look after those domestic resources. There's never been a plan, there's never been a revival. Agriculture itself, as an example only, is down to 8% of GDP from the highs of about 24%.
Right.
So for me, it's a no-brainer. Just revive those domestic industry, resource-based industry to support us. That is our strength.
Yeah, and in the same vein, because we're talking about economy and COVID, how would a Unity Fiji government, what would a Unity Fiji government have done differently in handling COVID?
Oh, the technical aspect of COVID, we have heard a lot of that. We should move in early and hard. We didn't do that.
What does it mean, move in early and hard?
We have to learn from what Australia and New Zealand did. We have to then have what they call it, a lockdown early.
But we had lockdowns.
No, we did it late.
Right.
And it was not enough, and it was not long enough. So that opened it up for the second wave, which we are now hopefully have.
So you mean that our borders should have been locked down for a
absolutely.
period?
We learn from other countries, and we have to put out a plan, a clear plan for everyone to understand. And lastly, our leaders have to stand there. In the time of war, where are the leaders? Not at the back, hiding. They should be there, right at the front line. They didn't. So we would have changed that. So
we have a part in this segment called the Public's Hot Seat, where we ask young people what questions they want to ask our guests. I'm going to play a recording from Sekove, and this is his question.
With the opening of the borders, there is a risk of the third wave of COVID. What would you do to lessen the impact?
So government's open borders, we are welcoming tourists back. I understand there's about 40,000 people who are earmarked to come into Fiji in this month and maybe next. What would a Unity Fiji government do to lessen the impact of a third wave?
We have to learn more about this Omicron variant. It is a new variant. We don't know. how serious it is. With that information, we will inform us on what protection we should put in place and what protocol we should put in place. But the thing is...
Do you think that it was wise to open borders right now?
I think we could have put that another 2 weeks or so to learn more about this Omicron.
Yeah, but government's plan to open borders on December 1st was in action way before Omicron came on.
We could change plans. That's the flexibility of leadership. You know, if there are new information, new threat, new risk, you change your plan.
Right.
You don't go on with the original plan. So we would have done that. Make sure we understand the new variant. Make sure that we have all the protocols and the rules of travelers coming in to address that particular place. It is a big, big balancing act. I know businesses are crying. I know hotels are empty. They want to be filled with tourists and so forth. But we must balance that with the precaution of
what would that
hurting
balance
lives.
look like? What would that balance look like?
If I was in government, I would err more on the precautionary side.
Right.
If I am wrong, the cost of being wrong will be much more than the cost of being right.
And with that, the other question I want to ask, because I know you have made some statements on this, is government's no jab, no job. Is the no jab, no job a precautionary approach by government to ensure there are more people who are safer in workplaces?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And our vaccination record speaks for it. And we now can open up because of that vaccination record. I mean, we look at the broader issue of rights and benefits and so forth. Government needs to do that as well. But I think they have achieved their no jab, no job aims in the vaccination rate that we currently
So you
enjoy.
support the no jab, no job policy?
It is for us as a measure, yes. But for us as the rights of people that have been impinged on, government could have done it much better.
What would that better look like?
Look, we need to bring the people with us in decision making. I know we are in a very challenging times, and you know the dictatorship does happen. But you bring that people in, you bring that in, and then you say, okay, what else can we do without it? Can people work from home? Can people do something else? But because no job means another family is without income. So it is quite tough, quite tough. We should have done that.
Okay, as we are about to end this segment, the last question I have is, which leader is your role model as you go into the next elections?
The leader in Fiji?
Anywhere.
Anywhere?
Yeah.
I think, to me, if you look at international leaders that we have, Mandela sticks out.
What about him sticks out for you?
He has brought a country torn by differences, torn by many, many challenges of racial and so forth, and has brought that to a united, country that they can look forward with hope for the future of themselves and their children. We must bring hope here to Fiji right now, and tell the people, you must look forward with confidence to a united country, a prosperous country, a fair one. So that is the aim.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Narube, for coming on this show with us. It has been an interesting discussion. Learned a little bit about economy, how you explained what debt to GDP ratio means. So thank you so much. Hopefully we see you again. To our viewers, thank you for joining in. See you next time when we return with another guest in the next show. Till then, be safe and good night.